let's start here. So it's official, as we know. Patriots Executive Vice President of Player Personnel, always a mouthful, de facto GM, right? Eliot Wolf got the job. But now reports are starting to come out here. We know, per the NFL's Rooney rule, teams are required to interview at least 2 minority candidates for these positions, right? Well, so we know they've interviewed a few for that position, but in the end, an article from Albert Breer said this, George, quote, candidates weren't brought to the team headquarters and didn't meet anyone other than the Crafts. So essentially, they were just took them out to dinner somewhere in Boston. I'm sure it was a wonderful dinner, but it was basically what you and I suspected, checking a couple boxes. Okay, let's give Eliot Wolf the gig. So no shock to us. We saw this coming. But I guess now, George, we're getting confirmation of what we thought, that this Rooney Rule thing for a lot of these teams. I want to be easy on the Patriots specifically because I want to acknowledge how important it is that they do have the first black head coach in franchise history. So I do appreciate that, and I've spoken about that. But all of these teams, I'm not letting the Patriots off the hook, but I'm putting everyone on the hook of they bring in these minority candidates to literally just check a box when they know damn well they have no interest in hiring them. And this is what, if you remember, Brian Flores was complaining about, right? That it's a charade to bring us in and to interview us when you're not going to give us an opportunity, and you know that going in. So it's pretty much what we thought, George. This is confirmation. Yeah,
it was, as you put it, talking about it before, it's a dog and pony show. Just, hey, we brought people in, we opened it up. It was just, to me, though, an odd start-to-finish process of finding who your de facto GM is. And after all this, you still don't have a general manager. Like, why are you holding out on that title?
Right.
Is it a pay thing, Robert Kraft? Is it you being cheap? I don't know. Now, Eliot Wolf was the right hire to lead this team in that front office. A, because he just drafted a team, but the past issues of your drafting and personnel decisions wasn't because of Eliot Wolf. It was because of Bill Belichick.
That's right.
And him walking all over guys like Matt Groh, who was the head of personnel when Belichick was still the general manager and head coach. Now, you touched on it. It's not like the Crafts are going around and saying, they don't believe in the Rooney Rule, they're minorities, because obviously they have Gerard Mayo, a black head coach. But the way they went about this whole offseason, I've said it before, the Crafts and the Patriots did the laziest coaching and GM search I've ever seen. They baked into Gerard Mayo's contract before last season began, because remember, he was getting head coaching interviews elsewhere around the NFL. And for him to stay without getting the DC title was, that raised some eyebrows. But they baked it in. You will be the successor to Bill Belichick once he's gone. They expected it to be 2 or 3 years down the road, not immediate 1 year after putting that. Then with this GM search, same thing. They don't go and actually interview any serious candidates. Brendan Hunt, the Eagles scouting director, good for him because he's a low man on the totem pole in that front office, and that's good experience for him to at least go through, talk with an NFL owner, put his name and his face in front of an owner. So if something opens up, they remember Brandon Hunt of the Eagles. We interviewed him, got to know him. He stuck out to me. I want to hire him. Then Samir Suleiman, who used to be with the Carolina Panthers as ex-cap chief for them. I mean, that's a guy that does the numbers, knows how about cap management, meeting the bottom line, but also staying within budget. That's everything Robert Kraft was, but again, not a serious candidate. What they did with all this was just say, Eliot, we're not giving you the title for whatever reason. It just doesn't make sense. Do this search in January, right after you fire Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. And if you do this search the right way, and you actually go out and interview a Jason Peters, who learned from the 49ers before becoming the head guy at the Commanders, who was in your building, talk to him. Interview an Alec Hellaby from the Philadelphia Eagles, who's the number 2 behind Howie in Philadelphia. And look at how they draft and how they do free agency and how they consistently be a contender. The reason you bring these guys in is because you learned from them. You do your own intel on these interviews while they're doing their intel by getting interviewed by you.
Sure.
You go and learn from other teams and other people how it's done. You haven't done a head coach search or a general manager search in 25 years. You might have to do it again in 3 years if Drake May doesn't work.
That's right.
But you didn't do it and you didn't learn anything. So that's where, again, the Patriots are just lazy. But it's the kumbaya that that Robert Kraft feeds to everybody an elegant solution of Belichick and us parting ways. You fired him. Just say it. It's fine, Robert. It's fine, Jonathan. So that's where this was the right hire made, but the process didn't make sense at all. And this could have been done 2 weeks after the end of the season, where you interview serious candidates. You don't make a mockery of the minority candidates you interview. Actually take them serious. Actually bring them in. Actually go through the process yourself, and your people learn. And if you still come to the endpoint of Eliot Wolf, fine, because he's the right man for the job.
Sure.
But you gain something in the process. So that's why with all this, I just hate how the Patriots did it. It is so lazy, and it is so wrong the process they went about it. And they're not a better team for it. They got a good head coach. We'll see. First-time head coach. First-time head of personnel. De facto GM and Eliot Wolf.
Yep.
But they could have done so much more for themselves. Right hire an Eliot Wolf. But this process and the logic behind it doesn't make sense at all. I don't think it'll ever make sense, but it's Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft trying to be the smartest guys in the room. Like, you don't have to be the smartest guy. Just make the right hire and do the right process. That's all anyone's asking for.
I can sense your frustration, but I think your frustration is sort of misdirected. I pushed back with the lazy narrative with you because I said both of us agree that Eliot Wolf earned the job, and they wanted clearly to hire within. I don't necessarily have a problem with Eliot Wolf being the hire. I don't really personally think it was lazy for that to be the outcome. The method in which they got there as it pertains to the Rooney Rule is really what both of us have the issue with. It's not so much, at least speaking for myself, it's not so much that the Patriots just decided Eliot Wolf's our guy and they didn't do thorough interviews of other people. I mean, hell, if you decide that's your guy, that's why they didn't do thorough interviews of other people. They knew they already had their man. It was his job to lose. He didn't lose it, so he got the gig. The issue both of us have, and I know, is the Rooney Rule is in place for the right reasons. The issue is the accountability of the Rooney Rule. These teams, there's no one to hold them accountable. There's no one to say, listen, you can't just parade minority candidates in here without giving them a fair opportunity to land the gig within your organization. That's not happening. I've been in interviews personally where I've gone in and interviewed for a job that I was not qualified for, and the hiring people say, you know what, you're not qualified for this job, but we really like you. You have talent. We see on your resume you have this, this, and this in terms of experience. We're going to put you in this position. So I ended up walking out of there with a job, just not the one I applied for. If this were happening, I bring this up because if this were happening in some of these NFL gigs, then I don't think there would be as big of an issue. The issue is when you bring in minority candidates, they have zero shot at the job, and you're not even interested in bringing them into your organization in some other capacity where maybe they can get their foot in the door and be more qualified for a position. A lot of times, a lot of these minority candidates are qualified for a position, overqualified for a position, and you're still just bringing them in to BS them to check a box. All of these examples, George, lead back to one word, and it's accountability. Someone, the NFL, needs to hold these clubs accountable. It can't just be enough to say you have to interview two, check, and that's it. It's just not enough. Again, I'm a little sensitive to the Patriots situation because I think they have, for the most part, in the post-Belichick era, albeit short, have done things the right way. But big picture, this Rooney Rule stuff, it's all good on the surface, but there needs to be accountability to hold teams to the standard, and it's just not happening.
It's my gripe is it's not Eliot Wolf getting the job because I think he's the right hire. And Gerard Mayo, I'm fine with that. If you believe in him, but you still open the doors, you gain stuff from interviewing serious candidates.
Right.
And if they bring in serious minority candidates from the front offices of the Detroit Lions, the Dallas Cowboys, some of the better drafting teams in the NFL who are led by minorities that are their head of personnel, so go to their personnel tree and see who's their right-hand person and interview them. My issue is that the Patriots could have gained a lot from an actual serious GM and coaching search, and they didn't do any of that. So that's where it goes into. And you're 1,000% right, Trav. The Rooney Rule is made a mockery of in the NFL every year. We saw it happen with Brian Flores when, remember, the wrong Brian got a text from Bill Belichick.
Right. Yep.
Meant to text Brian Dable.
Right.
Congrats on getting the job. When Brian Flores was still in the interview process for the New York Giants and he was confused. It was the same thing here. You bring in Brendan Hunt, And good for him to get this interview and get that experience. It'll help him when someone actually takes him serious and he's been through the ringer of the interview process.
Yeah.
So good for Brendan Hunt.
Yeah.
Samir Suleiman, if he wants to get back into a front office, sure, go ahead. We'll see what happens with him. You get that experience. But it's just the Patriots not taking it serious and not doing actual football work.
Yeah.
And this all could have been done by the end of mid-January to end of January. Everything could have been done. Eliot Wolf could have had this title. And guess what? Probably would have done the same in free agency and in the draft. So that's where it goes. You had him, you're going to draft the team, then we'll reassess from that point on. It just doesn't make sense. And there's you could zig when everyone's zagging. That's fine. You could do stuff a little differently. But I just don't get it why they did it this way. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And George, we keep bringing up Brian Flores, but there's countless examples. One that comes to top of mind recent is Raheem Morris. How long did it take that guy to get a second chance at a head coaching gig? Where we see other situations where that's not the case. There's retreads all the time. But when it comes to minority coaches, that is not the case. And Raheem Morris was paraded around, George, with this Rooney rule for several gigs over the years. He finally got his chance in Atlanta, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. But everyone will acknowledge he should have got another head coaching opportunity way sooner than he did. But again, checking boxes on Rooney. Well, we brought in Raheem Morris. I mean, where is the accountability? That's where I'm at.